To understand the context of this tragedy, it's important to recognize Brentwood's unique status, a city that ranks among America's 20 wealthiest communities. With a population of approximately 400 residents, this elite Nashville suburb is renowned not only for its luxurious landscapes, but also for its exceptional safety and high standard of living. Founded in 1969, Brentwood boasts impressive safety statistics. The crime rate here is 74% lower than the national average. Throughout the city's history, there have been only 8 homicides. Partially located in Williamson County, the 16th wealthiest county in the United States, Brentwood attracts affluent infrastructure, more than 10 parks, upscale shops, restaurants, and a world-class private golf club. Among local residents, you might encounter genuine celebrities: Taylor Swift, Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, Jack White, Mike Fisher, and Carrie Underwood. The area is home to successful business executives, politicians, and corporate leaders whose offices are located in the city's business district. The Maiden Mansion was situated in the heart of the prestigious gated community known as the Governor's Club. This elite 600-acre property surrounds a private golf club designed by legendary golfer Arnold Palmer. Access is restricted to residents and their guests only, creating an additional sense of security and privacy. Rachael and Randy's 5,000-square-foot home, valued at approximately $1 million, seemed like the perfect place for happy family life and career growth. However, behind these walls unfolded one of the most horrific dramas in the city's history, demonstrating that even the highest fence and the most sophisticated security system cannot protect against danger lurking within one's own home. This story became a dark reminder that behind the facade of prosperity, terrible secrets can hide, and status and wealth guarantee neither safety nor justice. Rachael Frisby embodied the American dream, a talented, hard-working, and determined young woman who achieved remarkable professional heights despite life's challenges. Her educational journey began at the prestigious Father Ryan Catholic School in Nashville, after which she enrolled in the academically renowned Birmingham Southern College in Alabama. In college, Rachael distinguished herself as a multifaceted talent. She was a star tennis player, earning top athletic and academic honors. Her achievements were recognized with one of the most prestigious awards, the Deiser Scholarship. Rachael graduated magna cum laude with a double major in biology and psychology. Her next step was the University of Florida, where she attended dental school. Here again, Rachael excelled, becoming class president, demonstrating leadership qualities, and actively engaging in community service. After receiving her Doctor of Dental Surgery degree, she completed her orthodontics residency at Children's National Medical Center in Washington. However, at the peak of her academic achievements, on December 3, 2003, a tragedy occurred that would forever change the Frisby family's life. Rachael's father, respected pharmacist Dr. Richard Frisby, was arrested by federal agents. He was accused of selling OxyContin to a Drug Enforcement Administration informant. Additionally, Richard was allegedly involved in legal prescription drug sales directly from his home. The case never went to trial. 2 days after his arrest, Rachael's father took his own life, unable to bear the burden of shame and fear of prosecution. But the nightmare for the Frisby family didn't end there. The Nashville Police Department froze the bank accounts not only of Richard, but also of Rachael, her mother, and her brother. They all found themselves under investigation in connection with the patriarch's alleged crimes. The investigation dragged on for years, and although Rachael and her relatives were eventually cleared of any wrongdoing, they suffered serious financial consequences. Rachael's mother received only $115,000 in compensation from the police, but this could hardly heal the emotional wounds. One can only imagine what emotional scars this story left on Rachael's soul. However, she didn't allow the family tragedy to destroy her life. She continued her education, graduated from university with distinction, and established her career. Clearly, Rachael was deeply motivated to become the best, achieve success, and secure financial independence. Perhaps it was a defense mechanism, a desire to protect herself and her future family and to never depend on anyone else again. At the time of her tragic death, Rachael was a successful orthodontist with her own practice, published articles in professional journals, and was a popular speaker at conferences. She had endured the terrible loss of a loved one and nearly faced bankruptcy, but managed to pull herself together and radically changed her life. And she succeeded. Unfortunately, not for long. Randolph Carey Maidens was born in St. Louis, Missouri to Charles and Barbara Maidens. He spent most of his childhood in Georgia, where he graduated from Wheeler High School in Marietta. His educational path continued at the prestigious Georgia Tech College, creating the image of a successful and promising young man. At the time of his marriage to Rachael, Randy held a position as a sales manager at a pharmaceutical company located in Brentwood. This biotechnology firm specialized primarily in oncology research. On the surface, everything looked perfect. A successful manager, a good job, and a prestigious address. However, rumors suggested that by the time of his wife's murder, Randy was no longer employed at the company. There's no official confirmation of this information. The firm's management reacted painfully to their employees' actions and refused to provide any comments. Nevertheless, this version seems plausible considering Randy's strange behavior in the months leading up to the tragedy. Approximately 3 months before Rachael's murder, Randy's behavior underwent dramatic and alarming changes. The man was rapidly descending into alcoholism and likely drug use. In January, restaurant patrons noticed an appropriately drunk Randy bursting into the establishment. His appearance frightened guests and staff, prompting one employee to call the police. Particularly revealing was an incident when a waitress, who didn't dare serve the problematic customer but was afraid to let him leave in such a state, called the police. Before the patrol could arrive, she called again, even more frightened, when the intoxicated man stood up and a shotgun shell and a large bottle resembling Tylenol fell from his pocket. Although Randy tried to flee, the restaurant staff managed to convince him to wait. The police did arrive and searched Randy's car, where they found a shotgun. Despite this, Maidens wasn't detained. According to witnesses, his wife came to pick him up. Interestingly, Randy repeatedly asked the waitress not to call Rachael, saying she would be angry. It's telling that the wealthy man who caused a disturbance in a public place while intoxicated and armed was released by police on his word alone. They didn't even attempt to press charges, allowing him to call his wife to take him home. This incident vividly demonstrates how status and money influenced law enforcement's treatment of Randy, which may have only reinforced his sense of impunity. After the restaurant incident, Randy's behavior became increasingly unpredictable. Neighbors began noticing alarming signs. In particular, Cynthia Rosenblum and her husband saw him wandering through the woods around houses wearing a mask. When they asked what he was doing, Randy could barely speak. He was clearly under the influence of alcohol or drugs. He explained his strange activity by claiming he was walking dogs and got lost. Before the murder in March, Randy was already facing charges of unlawful entry. This occurred in Florida, but the case was closed following his arrest for murder. Details weren't disclosed, though they might have shed light on the suspect's mental state and motives. All these incidents pointed to Randy's unstable behavior and propensity for violence. However, until the tragedy with Rachael, there were no real consequences for the wealthy man. The justice system repeatedly turned a blind eye to his antics, possibly due to his social status and financial position. The family's financial situation also raised questions. Later, police found approximately $887,000 in cash carelessly stuffed into a large bag in Randy's truck. Additionally, over $99,000 was found in the house. The origin of this money and the reasons for keeping such a significant sum in cash remained unexplained. the relationship between the spouses was becoming increasingly strained. In his suicide note, Randy complained about Rachel's unbearable character. He claimed it wasn't without reason that he became her third husband, as the previous two allegedly couldn't handle her either. Randy wrote that for the past 6 years he had endured daily humiliation from Rachel. She supposedly constantly yelled at him, argued over the smallest things, and belittled him. However, these accusations seemed dubious, considering Rachel's professional success and the feedback from her colleagues and patients. More likely, Randy was trying to justify his actions by shifting blame to the victim. His complaints about his wife sharply contrast with the image of a successful orthodontist who was respected in the professional community. The spiral of destruction reached its peak on April 21, 2013. The events of that day would forever change not only the lives of the Maidens family, but the entire Brentwood community, calling into question the effectiveness of the justice and security system in this elite suburb. On that Sunday evening, Betty Frisbee, Rachel's mother, felt uneasy after failed attempts to contact her daughter. She called Randy, making an ultimatum. If he didn't let her speak to Rachel within 10 minutes, she would call the police. Betty likely didn't suspect it was already too late. According to some reports, Randy himself called his mother-in-law after killing his wife. One can only imagine what he said to Betty that made her immediately contact law enforcement. Within minutes of Betty's call, patrol officers were at the Maidens' estate. No one answered their knocks. The officers noticed all the curtains in the house were drawn, making it impossible to see inside. Fortunately, the garage doors were unlocked. After entering the house, officers began calling out the owners' names. Neither Randy nor Rachel responded. Suddenly, people who had gotten up for the day stopped work. 2-year-old Natalie was lying in her crib on the second floor. One of the officers, Austin Kern, went upstairs and, looking through the balcony railings into the great room, saw blood spatter on the walls and a shotgun lying on the couch. Rachel's body was found on the first floor in the hallway between the living room and foyer leading to the master bedroom. She showed no signs of life. She had been shot in the back 8 times with a 9mm pistol and twice more with a shotgun. Examination of the crime scene revealed that someone had attempted to clean blood from the walls and floor. They had even used bleach. It smelled distinct in the air. However, the horrific bloody streaks were still clearly visible. Randy was nowhere to be found in the house, prompting an intensive search involving SWAT teams and helicopters. That night, Brentwood's elite district resembled a Hollywood action movie set. Both local police and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation were involved. Law enforcement immediately suspected that Randy might be armed and, given his recent strange behavior, extremely dangerous. At a press briefing, Brentwood Police Chief Jeff Hughes characterized Randy Maidens as an unstable individual. In the first hours of the investigation, important details emerged, shedding light on what had happened and, most importantly, pointing to possible motives of the killer. Randy, despite having time to escape, chose to hide in the woods behind his house. Perhaps due to haste or panic, he stayed there for 12 hours before finally emerging from the undergrowth with his hands raised, surrendering to police. On the kitchen table in the mansion, police found a suicide note. In it, Randy apologized extensively to his daughter, assured her of his love, and confessed that he had to flee because of a terrible act, though he didn't specify what. The man also thanked his wife's relatives for the years spent with them, but simultaneously complained about Rachel's impossible character. Phone records showed that on the evening of the murder, Randy called his attorney, one of Nashville's most experienced criminal law specialists, David Rabin. The exact details of their conversation remain unknown. However, a call to an attorney in such a situation raises questions. Meanwhile, a thorough inspection of the elite neighborhood and questioning of neighbors continued. Several residents reported noticing signs of attempted break-ins at their homes the morning after the murder. Someone had tried to open garage doors and regular doors, seemingly seeking shelter. Police checked surveillance camera footage and confirmed it was Randy wandering the neighborhood knocking on neighbors' doors. After his arrest, Randy was officially charged with first-degree murder, child neglect, and tampering with evidence. Under Tennessee state law, he faced either the death penalty or life imprisonment. Initially, he was held in custody with bail set at $2.5 million. Randy's attorneys immediately began petitioning for a reduction in bail and succeeded. In June 2013, the amount was reduced from $2.5 million to $750,000. Rabin convinced the judge that if Randy had truly planned to escape, he would have done so long before. After all, he had plenty of time to hide between the murder and the police arrival. Instead, he stayed to face justice. Additionally, no documents, tickets, or maps were found in his car indicating plans to leave town. Rachael's relatives never recovered from her tragic death and expressed deep disappointment with how the justice system worked in their country. They argued that even in cases of violence against a defenseless woman, wealthy and influential individuals often receive preferential treatment. This story became yet another example of how even in the most civilized, democratic, and wealthy countries, the law can sometimes be too lenient toward killers, especially those with money, connections, and skilled attorneys. The Randy Maidens case demonstrated how social status and financial capability can influence the outcome of a criminal case, even in serious crimes like murder. The main lesson from the Maidens family tragedy lies in a different realm and concerns us all. You never truly know what people hide behind a facade of prosperity. Even those who live in enormous houses in elite neighborhoods and seem to have everything may struggle with alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence, or even resort to murder. The Rachael Maidens case also exposed systemic problems in American society. Ineffectiveness of the early warning response system, numerous incidents involving Randy, his strange behavior, public appearances while intoxicated and armed, and illegal entries onto others' property didn't lead to serious consequences. The law enforcement system repeatedly released a potentially dangerous individual, possibly due to his social status. Double standards in justice. Randy receiving a significantly lighter sentence through a plea deal raises questions about the system's fairness. For similar crimes, individuals from less privileged backgrounds often receive maximum sentences. Insufficient protection for domestic violence victims. Despite the family living in one of the country's safest cities, this couldn't protect Rachael from violence in her own home. This case also highlights how external prosperity can mask serious problems. Brentwood, with its low crime rate and high standard of living, seemed like an ideal place to live. Yet even here, behind the closed doors of luxurious mansions, terrible dramas can unfold. The Williamson County District Attorney's Office stated that they agreed to the plea deal for little Natalie's sake, understanding that a trial could drag on and re-traumatize the child who had already lost both parents. However, they acknowledged that they believed the sentence was too lenient for such a brutal murder. Mr. Maidens' punishment is far too light compared to the cruelty of the evil he committed, they said. We want to emphasize that our family would not have supported a plea agreement for this senseless and horrible murder of Rachael. We agreed with the prosecution's position solely for Natalie's sake, as Betty Frisbee summarized the family's position. Despite the family's protests, Randy was allowed to speak in court. His defense attorney, David Rabin, read his client's statement, which began with words to his mother-in-law, Betty. My words now sound so empty in the light of your tragic loss. Lo, you are forced to endure the most terrible pain a mother can feel, and I am the cause of this. Every morning, I hope to wake up from this horrible nightmare that I brought upon our families. You welcomed me into your family, and I destroyed it. Most of his words were addressed to his 2-year-old daughter, who was left without a mother. "Natalie, my little girl, I can never express how sorry I am that I took your mom away from you. You lost both parents and it's all my fault. Know that you were the most important person in your mother's life." The sincerity of this remorse is hard to evaluate. Perhaps Randy truly realized and repented his actions, or possibly he was just trying to make an impression and soften his sentence. After all, before pleading guilty, he repeatedly shifted blame to Rachael. Even in his suicide note, he criticized her for her bad character, as if that could justify his crime. Randy's plea agreement with the prosecution also included transferring all property the couple acquired during their marriage to Natalie. The girl who survived that terrible night was placed under the guardianship of her grandmother, Betty Frisbee. Thus, at least the orphan's financial future was secured. Rachel's relatives never recovered from her tragic death and didn't hide their disappointment in how the justice system works in their country. They say that even when it comes to violence against a defenseless woman, a wealthy and influential person still receives preferential treatment. This story became yet another proof that even in the most civilized, democratic, and wealthy country in the world, the law is sometimes too lenient toward killers, especially if they have money, connections, and skilled attorneys. The Randy Maidens case demonstrated how social status and financial capabilities can influence the outcome of a criminal case, even when it involves a serious crime like murder. The main lesson to be drawn from the Maidens family tragedy lies in a different realm and concerns each of us. You never know what people hide behind the facade of prosperity. Even those who live in enormous houses in elite neighborhoods and seemingly have everything might suffer from alcoholism, drug addiction, domestic violence, and even resort to murder. The Rachael Maidens case exposed several systemic problems in American society. The ineffectiveness of the early warning response system. Numerous incidents involving Randy, his strange behavior, public appearances while intoxicated, and armed illegal entries onto others' property didn't lead to serious consequences. The law enforcement system repeatedly released a potentially dangerous person, possibly due to his social status. Double standards of justice. The fact that Randy received a significantly lighter sentence through a plea deal raises questions about the system's fairness. For similar crimes, people from less privileged segments of society often receive maximum sentences. Insufficient protection for domestic violence victims. Despite the family living in one of the country's safest cities, this couldn't protect Rachael from violence in her own home. This case also demonstrates how external prosperity can mask serious problems. Brentwood, with its low crime rate and high standard of living, seemed like an ideal place to live. Yet even here, behind the closed doors of luxurious mansions, terrible dramas can unfold. The story of Dr. Rachael Maidens reminds us of the need to be more attentive to warning signs, not to blindly trust external prosperity, and to remember that status and money should not influence the fairness of justice. Her death became a tragic reminder that domestic violence knows no social boundaries and can occur in any family, regardless of wealth and social standing. 10 years have passed since that tragic day in Brentwood, and much has changed. Randy Maidens continues to serve his 25-year sentence in Tennessee State Prison. Under the terms of his sentence, he has the possibility of applying for early release, though Rachel's family continues to oppose this. Natalie, who was only 2 years old at the time of the tragedy, is now a teenager under her grandmother Betty Frisbee's guardianship. She grows up in an atmosphere of love and support. Thanks to the terms of the plea agreement with prosecutors, her financial future is secure. She inherited all property that belonged to her parents. However, no amount of money can compensate for losing her mother at such an early age. Brentwood remains one of America's wealthiest and safest cities. However, the Maidens case changed the local community's attitude towards safety and domestic violence issues. Local police have strengthened their response protocols for domestic violence cases and suspicious behavior, even when involving wealthy citizens. The case has also influenced judicial practice in Tennessee. Criticism of Randy's overly lenient sentence led to more careful consideration of plea deals in serious crime cases. Prosecutors became more cautious in granting significant concessions to defendants, even when it might expedite court proceedings. Rachael's clinic in the Maryland Farms Business District was sold after her death. However, her colleagues and patients still remember her as a talented doctor and compassionate person. The professional community created the Dr. Rachael Maidens Scholarship Fund to support dental students. Betty Frisbee and her son Brent have become active advocates for domestic violence victims' rights. They regularly speak in support of legislative initiatives aimed at strengthening victim protection and perpetrator punishment. Rachael's story is used as an example that domestic violence can affect anyone, regardless of social status and financial standing. The pharmaceutical company where Randy worked experienced a serious reputation crisis after this incident. They implemented stricter protocols for monitoring employee behavior and providing psychological assistance. This story still sparks intense discussions about the nature of violence, the effectiveness of the justice system, and society's role in preventing similar tragedies. It reminds us that behind the facade of success and prosperity, terrible secrets can hide, and that society must be more attentive to warning signs, regardless of the social class of those involved. The memory of Rachael Maidens lives on not only in the hearts of her loved ones but serves as an important reminder of the need for constant vigilance and improvement of the domestic violence protection system. Her tragic story continues to influence people's lives, prompting changes in legislation and public consciousness. The case has become a landmark example in discussions about domestic violence and privilege in the American justice system. It demonstrates how, even in the most affluent communities with seemingly perfect security measures, tragedy can strike. The story raises important questions about how wealth and social status can influence law enforcement responses, the effectiveness of current domestic violence prevention systems, the role of community vigilance in preventing such tragedies, the impact of plea bargaining in serious criminal cases, the long-term effects of domestic violence on families and communities. Today, Rachael's story is often cited in legal education and domestic violence prevention training. It serves as a powerful reminder that domestic violence crosses all socioeconomic boundaries and that external signs of success can mask serious underlying problems. The legacy of this case continues to influence policy decisions and community responses to domestic violence in Tennessee and beyond. It stands as a sobering reminder that even in America's safest and wealthiest communities, no one is immune to domestic violence, and that vigilance and proper response protocols are essential, regardless of a perpetrator's social or financial status.